afternoon, YouTube. Skipper T here. Lately, I've been asked the question, how to get started in prepping. And I have found that to be a somewhat perplexing question. Very difficult question to answer. Part of that is, what are you trying to get out of being a prepper? Where do you live? That's going to have an impact on how you're going to prepare for things. If you live in the big city, if you live in a rural community, if you live in a fairly large city but you're out on the outskirts, a lot of these things are going to create a different set of, beginning aspects to your prepping. Juan wrote to me on my YouTube channel and asked for some advice on getting started. Danielle from work, hey Danielle, shout out to you, lives in the city. Based on the conversation that we were having, I'm assuming that her and her husband live in an apartment because she mentioned the fact that they don't have a great deal of space. Juan on my YouTube channel asked me, where do you start? Do you get, guns and weapons and knives and all of that? Or do you start with, cordage and shelters and all of these other aspects of bushcrafting? And each of those actually requires a kind of a different beginning spot, if you will. For example, you live in a city. You live in an apartment building. You've got limited space. Can you stack just tons and tons and tons of food up and, expect to then still have living space and a comfort level within your environment? We'll call it an apartment or, condo, whatever the case may be. We'll just refer to them as an apartment today. I kind of got the impression that this young lady at work, when she asked me the question, lives in a small apartment with her husband, and they don't have a lot of quote-unquote space. Well, there's a lot of things you can do. First of all, to become a prepper, all you have to do is think, Jesus, I need to be prepared for an eventuality, any kind of a man-made disaster, a Mother Nature disaster, whatever the case may be. First and foremost, once you've become aware of the fact that you need to take care of yourself first, to go through the first 72 hours, maybe a week, maybe a month before help can get to you, you technically have become a prepper at that point in time because you are actually thinking about this. And that is step number one. Now again, the apartment dweller in a city, something like that, limited space. Stock your cabinets. Every time you go to the grocery store, you buy, if the soup cans are on sale, buy a couple extra cans, put them away somewhere. Put them in the back of the cabinet. Put them underneath something. One of the things I had seen on a video or maybe even a television program, which I thought was absolutely precious. You don't have a lot of space in an apartment. It does not take anything to fill all the closets, the nooks and crannies, all of the cabinets. You have limited space. But if you have a bed and that bed sits on a bed frame, the average bed frame is 6 inches from the floor to the bottom of the metal runners that create the frame that your mattress sits on. If that's in fact the case in your situation, take your mattress and your box spring, stand them up, get them off of that bed frame, reach down in there and measure the floor to the bottom rail where your box spring sits. If that's 4 to 6 inches above the ground, you can go to the hardware store, measure the width, measure the length of the bed frame itself, inside the supports where the legs sit down to support it. Go buy a 1x4 piece of wood, cut it down to the right width, get it at the right length. You can put the two corners together, put a little Elmer's glue on it, pound a couple of nails in there, frame the inside underneath of your bed. Now, every time there's a chunky can of soup on sale, and you buy one or two for your next few meals, buy one or two, stick them under your bed and put them inside that square frame that you built down there. Pasta will keep virtually forever. It's just dried out wheat and flour made into, paste. It's shaped however you want it to be. Spaghetti is very simple to store. You can buy a smaller Tupperware thing, that'll fit underneath of that bed. Get it with the lid on it that's 6, maybe, 5, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches tall. Open that thing up, take all your spaghetti out of the boxes because there's a lot of wasted space in there. Fill that thing up. You could probably put 5, 6, 7 pounds worth of pasta in there. Make sure the lid clamps back down. A, you don't want to encourage any bugs. 2, you don't want to encourage any rodents to come in and live underneath of your bed. Canned foods are absolutely wonderful because they'll stay forever. Of course, everything has an expiration date on it currently because the manufacturers want you to buy this stuff. But a can of food will last a very long time. It's been proven over and over and over again. But you can put jars of, call it Prego, spaghetti sauce under there. You can put cans of soup under there, cans of vegetables. You can do canned fruit under there. And if you've got a queen size or even a king size bed, maybe even just a large double, you'd be absolutely amazed at how much food that you could just hide underneath your bed. Now, if your bed's anything like mine, I look underneath of there, it's got the odd slipper, maybe that sock I haven't been able to find for a year, and some dust bunnies. Why not pull that all up, clean it all out good, build that little frame? Suddenly you've got a pantry that's under your bed, and it's a thought process that we hadn't even utilized. It's dead space. Fill it up with as much food as you can. Again, those canned foods are going to last forever. If it's a boxed item or something like that, if you've got to seal a meal, cans of ramen, or not cans, but packages of ramen noodles, macaroni and cheese, I put those in seal meals. Just dump them right in, put the flavor packet in, suck all the air out of it. Man, you can stack a whole bunch of stuff like that underneath of your bed. Your closet space is limited, your counter space or your cabinet spaces are limited, but this would be a great place to store actually, in probably a month or maybe 2 months worth of food. And it's out of sight, out of mind. Nobody that comes over to your house is going to see this. Another hiding spot that I think is interesting, and most people have probably never thought about this, but I've bought furniture. And when I lift or flip over my couch, there's always a black type of material that's been stapled on the bottom of that couch. If you cut that material out and look underneath there, a lot of times you've got 12 inches worth of space in there. Again, here's another place where you could put Tupperware containers in there full of food. You don't want them so tall that when it's got your cushions on your couch bowed out, but you could sit on your couch, you could buy 1 or 2, see if it's going to fit underneath of there, sit on the couch as long as it's still comfortable and you're not interfering with the support frame, for when you're sitting on the couch. Again, here's a bunch of dead space that you could hide food in that the average person's never going to see, because the clearance from your couch to the floor is probably going to be 2, maximum 3 inches. So again, you could cut that opening out from underneath of a couch, stuff a bunch of food in some containers, and then just set the couch right back over the top. Between being under a queen size bed and being underneath of a couch, if your couch is designed that way, you'd have to take a look and see. But you've got the availability at that point in time to store, probably 3 months worth of food fairly easily. Instant potatoes work great. All you have to do is add water. If I were going to take closet space, I don't know that I would fill it up with a bunch of food and such like that when I could do it under the bed or do it possibly under a couch or under the end tables on either side of a couch. I would store water in the closets, okay? Because one of the biggest problems you're going to have initially is water, and water supplies are going to be critical. There are plenty of websites out there that make a plastic bag that'll fit inside the tub of your house, okay? You drop that down in there, and while there's still power and electricity going on, you could fill that entire tub in a great big plastic container with fresh water. Now you've got about 40, anywhere from 30 to 40 gallons worth of water. That's going to carry you quite a ways. If you keep several cases of bottled water in your closets, it's not going to take you as far, but at least initially speaking, you'll be able to have water. Then if it rains, you can always set up a tarp. You can funnel it into a bucket. You can funnel it into, if the tub thing becomes empty, you could, rig something to drain the water into it. That's kind of how I would approach things if I was in an urban environment. If you're in more of a rural environment, the exact same principles stand. But if you're in a house versus an apartment, you've got a little bit more to work with. You've probably got an attic area that you could take, maybe you couldn't take a full 4x8 sheet of plywood up there and spread it across the rafters, but maybe you could cut that down into 12-inch sections and put it through those little holes, in the ceiling and the closets and such. Run those cut down pieces of plywood up there, run it across the joisting for the ceiling. Now you've got another spot. Now that's going to be a lot more susceptible to rodents and things like that if you're out in the country. So again, this is going to be a place where you're going to put something in a jar, you're going to put something in a can up there, or you're going to put it in a Tupperware type thing, preferably to seal them. You'll keep as much scent out of it as possible, and something that locks down on the edges so that you can't just knock the lid off real easily and then something can crawl down inside. You're going to want to check this periodically. Of course, you're going to want to do this anyway. Eventually, you will want to rotate your preps. I mean, you can't put a can of food in there and hope 40 years later it's still going to be good. So, you need to build an inventory sheet. You kind of keep track of this information. You may actually have to rotate it through and keep your stocks fresh and things like that. Your water in your containers, every couple of months, you're going to need to drain it out. If you've got like those big blue gasoline jugs, a lot of these now will stack on top of each other. Use the blue ones and designate blue for your water supply. At my house, we've got red cans that we keep gasoline in. I've got a blue can that I keep kerosene in for my shop heater. But the ones that are designated for water either spell out water on the side in black magic marker, or they say H2O so that we know that that is a designated water can. And if you pour it in the kerosene heater, it's not going to work. Vice versa, I don't want to take that jug and fill that jug with kerosene at the gas station. So these are just a couple of ways that, as a new prepper, as somebody who really starting to want to take care of themselves but are on a limited budget, a limited space allotment, these would be a great way for you to get started. I don't really know how else to put this. I, like a lot of people out there, I became aware a couple of years ago about all the things that are going on in the world and became concerned myself. The equipment that I have now, the things that I use now have taken me a couple of years to acquire. I've had to save up for stuff. I'm not a man made out of money, If you can go out and drop $2,000 or $3,000 today on some stuff, I would advise you to buy some things differently than I would advise just a standard person such as myself that over time is going to have to build up to bigger and better equipment. A lot of what I've done over the years, last couple of years, I really didn't need to do because the equipment I started off with was pretty darn good to begin with. But like a lot of people, I get caught up in it and bigger and better, and it's all, more expensive. It's got to be, worth so much more. Buyer beware. That is not always the case. So just, you got to stop and think about it. So again, that's how I would get started, initially speaking, as a prepper. First and foremost, you have to stay hydrated. You have to have shelter, okay? And you've got to be able to feed yourself. If you can do those three things right off the top, you're already way ahead of the ballgame. You hear a lot of this, I'm going to bug out, or I'm going to take off and go here, and I'm going to take off and go there. Last resort. The best thing you can do probably to start with, now if a tornado comes and wipes your house out or your apartment building out, that's a whole different story. But, again, if a volcano goes off and we're covered in ashes, if there's been an earthquake but your building is still standing, stay home. Get rid of, eat those food sources, gather your neighbors around, have everybody pitch in, get a support system going. That's another aspect of prepping that I think is very, very underrated. First and foremost, find some like-minded people. You cannot do this alone, okay? If I'm the only person out in the woods and I have nobody but myself, then yeah, I'm going to rely totally on myself. But eventually, I am going to come across other humans. And as a result, I want to get along with these people. I want to be able to contribute somehow to, a group, a village, a hamlet, just a small group of people. So I prepare myself in ways other than just food. One of the other things I think is terribly underrated is reading, okay? Most people today do not read. We all sit down in front of videos and watch this, and we have all this data presented to us both, through our vision and through our ears. Reading is so underrated today. Go to your local Barnes & Noble or whatever bookstore is there. Buy a book on gardening, okay? Buy a book on herbs. Buy a book on how to take care of medical emergencies. There are some excellent books out there as far as being able to take care of yourself when it comes to a medical issue. Some of these books are written by, field medics that were in the military. Others of these books have been written when folks go into, like the Congo in Africa or the jungles of South America, where you just don't have hospitals and medications like we have. Get these books and read up on them. Find out what wild edible plants are in your area. There are several great books. In fact, one of them, can't remember the guy's name at the moment, but he talks about walking from your house to the local park and then picking enough food along the way that grows in virtually every neighborhood, that by the time you get to the park, you're going to have a decent salad of edible foods. Is that a quarter pounder cheeseburger? No, it's not. But is it going to sustain you? Absolutely. So get some of these books, even if you don't sit down and read them the minute that you get them. If, there's a situation and there's no power, eventually, your iPads, your computers, all these batteries are going to run out. But as long as there's sunlight available, you will always be able to read a paper book. The food under the bed, the food under the couch, the water in the closet, stuff in your cabinets with things that are on sale. And you don't have to go to the store and run out and buy all that today. When something's on sale and you buy 2 or 3 items, buy 1 or 2 extras, tuck them away, okay? Now you're prepping. You buy these books. Again, if all you've got's a little flower thing that you can hang outside your window, why not? Plant an upside down tomato plant in there. Put some herbs in there. Herb gardens you can grow on the counter in your kitchen. Learn how these things work. Practice this. This is the biggest thing. You can sit around and you can read all about it. You can watch all the videos that anybody such as myself has produced. But unless you get up off your butt, go outside and try this, you're just never going to know if it's going to work or not. You'll never know for sure what you might need to change, upgrade, downgrade, manipulate slightly so that it works for you. Because as much as I tell you about things, or anyone else that makes these videos, the bottom line is you have to take care of yourself. So you have to plan it, you have to try it, you have to make the adjustments for your environment. And, frankly, you just have to know whether or not it's going to work. That, I think, is how you start prepping. Watch the YouTube videos like this one. Again, read all of these books. You will learn more and more and more. But in the meantime, stock yourself some food that'll go the distance, okay? It's worth every ounce of effort. It's worth every penny. Again, you don't have to go drop $1,000 at the grocery store this afternoon. You can do this every time you go to the store. Oh, ramen noodles. You have 5 packs for 79 cents. Buy 5 packs for 79 cents. Buy a second one. Put that second 5-pack away somewhere. Ramen noodles are going to pretty much last forever. It's a dehydrated pasta. And until it gets wet or nibbled on by a rodent, that's going to be perfectly fine. It's going to stay that way probably long after we're gone. But again, that's just a great meal. And all you have to do is boil water, pour it into it, let it rehydrate. 5 minutes later, you've got a pretty decent, pretty tasty meal. Is it going to be, going out to your favorite restaurant? Not even close. But is it going to keep you alive? Absolutely. One other thing I want to stress, and a lot of people don't talk about it. I have seen some comical videos on YouTube about this, but toilet paper. You cannot have enough toilet paper in your house. A couple of big rolls, again, put them away. You're stacking that water in that bottom of that closet, throw a couple extra packages of toilet paper. Hygiene is going to become a huge factor If a situation happens where you don't have power, you don't have the luxuries, you can't flip the switch and turn the lights on, heat your house, do whatever. Keep a few extra washcloths laying around, okay? Because these are gonna suddenly become your primary means of getting yourself clean. Standing under a shower and wasting 40 gallons of water is no longer gonna be applicable. You're gonna have to take a washcloth, clean under your arms, wipe down the primary parts are gonna have to be cleaned all the time so that dysentery doesn't become a factor. So these are a couple other things. When I buy soap in great big quantities, 30 bars at a time. Makes my bathroom and the closet that I store it in smell great. But I also know that for another month and a half, 2 months, if I showered every day under that 40 gallons of water, I'm covered. But if I'm gonna be doing spit baths and stuff like that, that 30 bars of soap may last me 3 years, okay? But again, it's just stuff, and I cycle that through. When I get down to 5 or 6 bars, I go buy another one next time at the store if I see them that's on sale. This is how you get started in prepping, folks. This is where you start this. Don't go out. This isn't the doomsday prepper thing that we've seen on TV. You're not going to go out and buy a $500,000 bunker and fill it with, 45 years worth of food and guns and ammunition to start, basically have a war with a third world country. It's not true prepping. True prepping is being able to take care of yourself for basically, I shoot for a 3-month period of time. My basic philosophy of prepping and food storage, and I will just share this with you. This is my personal, humble opinion, if you will. But I prep food and everything so that if it's the 1st of November, kind of the beginning of winter, all the food, all the gardens are gone, everything like that. If defecation were to hit the rotary oscillator in November, I have to be able to survive and keep my family alive until about June or July, when the food that I have planted in the early spring starts to produce enough food to sustain us. So, man, I'm telling you, you're looking at, 5 to 6 months worth of time. Always keep some generic heritage seeds on hand. That's something I haven't mentioned previously. I've got 9,500 of them myself in like 75 different plant varieties. But why heritage seeds? Because the seeds you go out in the spring and you buy at the big hardware stores and you plant your garden and they produce all this massive amount of foods, the seeds that are in those plants will not reproduce for the following year. These are genetically manipulated plants, GMOs they're referred to. They'll give you an abundant, wonderful amount of food out of them, but the problem is the seeds are sterile. You can't replant those year after year after year. Go online and get some heritage seeds. That way you know that the seeds, any food that is produced from those seeds, you can keep those seeds, dry them out, plant them again the next year, and produce another crop. One thing to be aware of, heritage seeds don't produce as much food or as much fruit or vegetable or whatever it is that you're planting as a GMO product will today. And 20% of them probably won't even germinate. So the amount of food that you're going to grow next year as compared to last year is going to be down probably 30%. So bear that in mind. Maybe plant some extra to compensate for it. If you don't know how to can things, get online, watch some videos, pick up a few pieces, parts, whatever it takes, and learn to can yourself some food. Again, when I'm thinking of food storage, I always think of the 1st of November, everything's dead and gone. Can I survive until the following spring when the stuff that I plant, late March, early, April, once it starts to produce food, I have to be able to live between that period of time. That is my initial thought process on how long I'm going to have to survive on the food that I've got stored. So as far as answering the question of how to get started and what to think about, 2 different scenarios there. The folks that live in the urban environment, those of us that live kind of more out in the country, same thing. I have a house versus an apartment. I can store a little bit more food a little bit more readily. But at the same time, I flip a switch and the lights come on. If I flip a switch and the heat comes on. If all of that goes away, I'm in the exact same boat you are. So I've got to find local, like-minded people We've got to get together. We have to have a plan. We kind of need to come together as a small community, take care of each other. Kids, there is strength in numbers. There is less fear when you've got more people to share the burden of this. You know, get together, start some little groups, talk to your neighbors, find out who's going to help and who's not. Again, you can't do this all by yourself, but this is a great way to get yourself started thinking about prepping and starting your journey to become a prepper. I'm going to shoot another little video here in a minute, and as far as being able to take equipment along with you, I will at that point get into a little bit more information on the types of things I think you should keep with you at all times. But until then, guys, I appreciate you watching this video. Remember, you got to cover 5 months worth of food, and there are multiple ways that you can do this. And I think to start the journey of prepping, I think that's where you need to start. You have to be hydrated, and you have to be fed. You have to have shelter. The rest, we'll work on that as time goes on. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.